What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of Snowpiercer Season 3, Episode 6, Born to Bleed. Now, before we begin, if you like this channel, awesome, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome, hit that like button, as well as commenting below on any video that you watch, including this one. Okay, so as I said in the last episode that I recorded for this series in Season 3, the whole Pike situation has been a really interesting one. Not in the simple fact that I don't like what Stephen Ogg is doing. It's the simple fact that they wrote him into a villain so quickly and so kind of unjustifiably, I guess you could say. But I always held hope that there was going to be some kind of way for him to be redeemed. Maybe something was going to change about him. But he's been the kind of guy that's always been really difficult to kind of not like nail down, I guess you could say. He's always been kind of his own person, and as he says in these last couple episodes, Layton kind of just left him to be. Like, they left all these people behind for 6 months, and I understand, but there was a reason for that. There was a logic for that. I never felt, especially in the last episode, that Pike really was a guy that would be a bad guy, a guy that would be an antagonist. Well, we have the culmination, as if you watch this episode, where basically this is the end of the story to Pike's character. And if you've seen the episode, you already know what happens to Pike. But in essence, this is a kind of an episode where Pike is going to come to his final moment, his final reason, his final logic. How it gets there, I'll explain as we move along. And so with that said, I'll talk about, Pike stuff in a second, Layton stuff and Wilford and so on and so forth. But I just want to talk about the Aleks, Sam, and Carly stuff. Carly, of course, is Sam's daughter. They were both in the stasis pods for 6 to 7 months or however long it was, after Wilford killed Sam's wife and all that stuff that happened. In the process of everything, Sam tried to kill Wilford, which actually leads into the Audrey Wilford stuff. But he tried to kill Wilford. He's now with a mental doctor, I guess you could say, someone who would work in like a halfway house or a padded room, a psychiatric ward, I guess you could say. And he's been there for probably a few days, I guess. He's been in there kind of just like stewing on his own just angerness about what happened, about him in the stasis thing, about his wife dying, about him blaming himself and blaming Wilford. Ruth tries to go in there to talk to him, and he's just like, leave me alone. I'm just going to stay in here because if I come out, I'm going to try and kill Wilford again. It's understandable. I get it. He's very just angry, and we'd all be. We see our wife die. We see all this stuff happen, and I actually completely forgot that it was a thing that happened. And it's just one of those things where it's really sad to see what is happening to his character. But that's why it's so important, even though it's a little kind of strange to be in this episode, which is very much about catching the terrorists, which we find out later. What's so impactful by it is how potent of a character Aleks can be. She's been there in the same place that Carly is. The fact that Jennifer Connelly's character only came back as a flashback really makes me question whether Jennifer Connelly's just officially gone from this series, or she comes back in flashbacks, or as visions or something like that. Maybe she has found that train that people have been talking about in the comments. I don't know entirely sure, but she ends up going, Alex's character, after Wilford wakes up and is now in the place that he's at, she goes to the dinner car, she's eating breakfast, and she sees Carly, and she actually goes over and talks to Carly and convinces Carly, who was very angry at her dad, to go see her dad, to talk to him, to get him out of this problem. Because Sam's character is very important to the Snowpiercer story. Is he the main character? No. But I always loved what his character was and how the actor who's playing him really did a nice job of kind of giving him dimension, giving him an arc, and just, we want to see this character come back. But Carly goes to talk to Sam after Aleks basically extorts that the mental doctor, the doctor in the mental room and stuff like that, and they basically connect, and he's like, I don't want to leave, you got to go off and do your thing, and she's like, I'm not doing it without you, you got to come back. And as we see later on, he does leave the padded room, is now with his daughter and Bess, and of course Ruth pops up. I really thought that was it's an impactful moment in a story that is kind of like weirdly placed at this moment, which I'm really kind of frustrated with a little bit, because I feel like the season was going so well that having the Stephen Ogg stuff with Pike and his story and everything he's doing, it really is a little problematic for a series that's trying to come back on track after everything that happened last season. And I'm a little kind of deflated for that purpose, but I think it could be something truly unique if played out properly. But that's kind of where the story leads off for the time being. We'll see what Sam and, Carly, if that story ends there and they just kind of play background characters for a little while. But then we have Wilford, who is relegated into the library in a wheelchair. And Audrey basically has worked a deal with LJ, who seems to have a lot of power. She seems like that kind of person who has connections everywhere, and she's able to use those connections for her own being. She's actually given Father the eyeball, which she does something strange with it in her mouth when Bess is around later on in the episode. It's just a really strange, but really kind of LJ kind of type of character. Annalise Basso has always been a really fascinating actress in this role, but Audrey is allowed, basically, she is given the chance to go talk to Wilford to a conjugal visit. As we know, conjugal can mean many things. We always mean it as sex, but she has a conjugal visit with Wilford, and she finds out, as we all expected, Wilford is, after he was almost killed by Sam, he is not the same character, or at least for the moment, he's not the same character as he was in the beginning of this season, as last season. I think he's going to be an interesting, not foil, but interesting kind of anchor point for Layton later on. We're going to see exactly what happens. Maybe he's going to turn evil again. I don't know. But Audrey's like, Layton's in a predicament right now. We can take over the train. You can be the head of the train. He's trying to get people off the train. And the crazy thing happens. Wilford actually agrees with Layton. He's like, we can go live in this new Eden, get off this train, live forever. And it pisses off Audrey, as it would, because Audrey's under this assumption. She's been brainwashed really dramatically because of Wilford. So the thing she believes, that the fact that Wilford doesn't believe it, is really kind of an interesting take, where it's interesting to see what Wilford's done. I love what Sean Bean's doing with this character. I think even though the series suffered in the second season, which I know a lot of people don't agree with, Wilford, or Sean Bean's, always been this bright spot of this whole entire series. And so I'm really intrigued and really kind of interested to see what's going to happen with his character. But Audrey just kind of walks off. She says this is BS and just kind of leaves. And that's kind of the end of her arc and Wilford's arc. Wilford pops up during the speech that Layton gives to get Pike into the fold. But I don't know. I just found that a really unique, really interesting way to twist a character that was truly kind of an antagonist in a lot of aspects. So, but here's another thing that I was actually really excited about. I was wondering what happened to Miles. I know he went to the engineering car to learn to be an engineer, but he was a kid. The Miles character is a kid, so he in real life had probably schooling and stuff like that. So that's probably why he's not on the show. I'm so glad that he reconnected with Josie in this episode. I was a little worried that Pike was going to blow something else up that was going to kill Miles. That was why he was in this episode. But no, it's just the reconnection of Josie and Miles, which has been a long time coming. They haven't seen each other for almost a year. And I just love the fact that they're reconnected. We see Miles, who's much, much older. That's another problem with having kids on a show, is if the time is set in the same time frame, but when they film it, it could be many, many months or even a year later. I get with the whole Miles situation, they kind of had to work around that, and they actually make it work in some fashion. And it's nice to see him come back. He's in a couple scenes, but it's like in the series of Lost with the young kid and the Harold Perrineau character, his father. The kid aged really quickly, so it was nice to see Miles come back in some form or fashion. Whatever he plays in this series, probably not much, but we see it just a little bit enough to know he's still part of the series. So I really like that. I thought it was a nice little nod, a character we haven't seen for I think since almost the beginning of season 2, to be fairly honest. So I was really happy about that, to be absolutely honest with you guys. But outside of all that small stuff, it's not really small, but it's smaller pieces. The thing that this episode is doing is giving us a confronting of Pike and Layton as the series moves to its episode conclusion. And what's really interesting is Bess is going to investigate. I think it's the Sykes character, about because they learn that it's ammonium nitrate, and they learn that it's basically a fertilizer bomb because they're using the stuff and the gel, the whatever tablets or whatever they're using. And Bess goes to visit the person that has the book that they've learned that has bomb and so on and so forth, making kids in it for whatever reason if they need to use it. And the book has pages torn out of it, which are the portions of the fertilizer kit making. Well, earlier in this episode, we of course we know that Pike is the terrorist. He's the guy that tried to kill Layton. he's having nightmares of Ruth and the other guy's been killed trying to kill him. And he and some other tailies are brought up to see Layton and Zara, who Zara's, nursing a kid and stuff like that. Just to let you know, I made a complaint last week in the last episode about Layton Zara's baby being fake. There was a good point brought up about COVID and maybe not having the baby there would have been a good idea. Just kind of keep babies who can't be inoculated or can't be given the vaccine. And in this week's episode, we have a real baby. I mean, when they cover the baby up, it's a fake baby. It's just how that makes sense. But how creepy and how weird that baby looked in the last episode. Now we have a real baby. I question why they did that. I really did. In a series that actually has a pretty decent budget, it was just a weird thing to have. Here it has a more normal situation with how they handle a baby. Yes, the baby's seen for a couple scenes. It's used as a fake baby to cover it up, which they do in a lot of series like Family Matters and, Friends, where it is still a fake baby, but it's more realistic in how they handle it. But I just really had a problem with that. And I thought it was frustrating because this production has money to it because of the way it's filmed. And Pike and the tailies are brought up, and Pike is doing something. He knows. We know what happened. We're actually ahead of Layton in this situation. Well, Pike is given the chance to hold the baby, which is plays into the next minute or two of this episode. And in essence, basically what happens is Layton is given a call from Bess, who explains what's going on. Layton and Bess realize that only a handful of people would know about this book. And most of them are dead, if you remember the last season, when a lot of them were killed, unfortunately. And it leads to one person, and that person is Pike, who is holding... Which somebody said, the name of the baby and stuff like that. And I tried to explain that the baby's name was from that tree, and the name was the kid who actually asked about the name. So that's the whole kind of connection there. But it basically leads to Layton knowing that Pike was a terrorist, and Pike has the baby, which causes concern. Pike's like, I'm not going to kill the baby. He kind of tosses the baby back to Zara and runs off. And of course, Layton follows Pike. Pike gets the upper hand when he's walking and running down the steps, kind of falls, Layton falls off and gets hurt. And Pike gets away by saying he needs to find diapers or whatever. It's the whole thing. And in essence, Pike is hiding. He finds his way to Asha's little cubby hole portion of a train. He's has a bomb in hand that he's building, and he realizes, or he's kind of always known, that Asha has been holding the secret of the lie that, of course, Layton has been telling people about New Eden, just kind of figuring everything out. And he's on a course now where he's going to either survive and kill Layton, or he's going to die. It's just that unfortunate situation. But of course, Layton wants to find Pike and the whole situation in its own right, and everything that happens, he eventually comes to the conclusion that they need to have a sit down, or not he, but they like Ruth and of course Bess and Zara basically say, you just need to go back to the tail section where they handle things by either fixing the problem or killing each other. Whatever happens, they will not leave until everything's fixed. So Layton agrees. He puts it over the intercom, and that's when it continues down to the tail section where it becomes the huge moment. And Ruth she's trying to talk him down. I know how the character is going to react. She's stuck between the two situations. She loves this guy, but she has to be realistic. Pike has been defending her to be the next, the new leader of the Snowpiercer. And that it's going to affect Ruth mentally and physically, or not physically, but mentally in her heart. And what happens is exactly what happens. So we'll see how it plays out later in the next 4 episodes. But in essence, this leads to the thing, the tradition that the tailies have when they are fighting amongst one another in a way to just settle the dispute. And that's where the two main people, which are Layton and Pike, will sit in a room. They die, one dies, or it's just solved. And I love the fact that they're slamming the big scythes and knives and stuff on the ground, and it's just making a war chant. Pike comes in. He actually gives the bomb to Ruth to tell her this is going to be settled this way. You have to leave. And Ruth unfortunately has to leave. That's when she goes to Sam's car, and basically Pike, Josie lists out what's going to happen. They all know, they all settle, and basically Pike, and for the next 5 or 6, probably 10 minutes of this episode, Pike and Layton have a sit down, a chat. Now, I say I have problems with Pike the way he kind of transitioned himself in this season. But this section is completely sad and heartbreaking because Pike is, especially Stephen Ogg, who's known for being in like GTA, Grand Theft Auto 5, and this character role, which I think he was amazing in as a character that kind of disappears when he's put in the stasis tube and so on and so forth. He basically lays it out to Layton. He's like, you've been using me, you disappeared, you come back, and you are all of a sudden the commander again. And everything that Pike says, you can totally understand. The way he handled it is not justifiable. The fact that he tried to murder Layton, he didn't sit down and talk with Layton. He just feels Layton is betraying him and has betrayed the whole Taily section. And I said it last season, I don't think Daveed Diggs' character of Andre Layton was well handled and well positioned. I thought it fell off a cliff. I think the problems and situations that they've written for him this season have been remedied a little bit, but he's always been a character that kind of makes mistakes, and I guess that makes him human in a lot of aspects to make those mistakes. But he just comes off a little too forceful and a little too demanding in his own right. So I understand what he's saying, and he's giving all these terms to Pike about, we want you to be the Godfather. I will forgive you for everything you've done. We just need you here. And Pike's like, this is hollow. You're very shallow in what you're saying. You know, you don't understand what the situation. He's basically throwing it back in Layton's face that you made this in your own self. You made this a problem, and you were going to pay for it. So he keeps demanding a thing called knives. Now I was thinking like, okay, maybe he wants to cook something or something. I don't know. I was just joking, but he basically wants a tribal war battle between him and Layton with a couple of knives. You know, they take knives and they do like the fight between Matthew Broderick and Jim Carrey and Cable Guy, and they basically settle that this is going to go down to a brawl and someone's going to die, or both are going to die. It all depends. And they fight each other, and of course, Pike gets to the upper hand. He actually hits Layton with a book, which causes some flashbacks or visions or whatever of the tree of New Eden, of all these types of things. And right before he goes to stab stab Layton, Layton stabs Pike in the kind of right around here, I think, somewhere around this area, like where the lungs are and stuff like that. And I couldn't understand what he was saying because unfortunately I don't have subtitles for these screeners. But it didn't sound good, what Pike was saying. Please let me know what he said in the comments, because like I said, I didn't have any way of understanding. It's hard to hear sometimes with these screeners. But basically, Pike is killed. Pike is stabbed. He's officially dead. And like I said in the beginning of this episode, when a character is given that much screen time and given that much of a kind of, there's a lot of focus on that character. A lot of times that's when the character's demise is coming up. It happens in the movies, happens in TV shows all the time. It's a big precursor to what's going to happen to that character. And that's why I thought Miles was going to die, because he just kind of shows up, which I love the fact that he was in this episode. In essence, this is Stephen Ogg's last episode. For the time being, I think there might be some Vision stuff going on, but Stephen Ogg's Pike character is dead. Like I said, I love Stephen Ogg in this role. I think he did have progression that was great. It was a little downtrodden in these last few episodes, but in essence, he's killed. Ruth, of course, is very distraught and upset by it, but she knows it was the thing that was going to happen. And as Layton is putting on the death Shaw or whatever on Pike, he starts to have visions of stuff. I don't remember if it was from earlier in the season or if it's new stuff, like Pike in a Reverend uniform or outfit, and then he sees New Eden, he sees all this stuff, and then he passes out, and that's the end of the episode. This stuff that's happening to Layton, it's a very supernatural, very religious nature and tone of visions of seeing stuff in the future or the past. Maybe Layton's been here, he just doesn't remember. It's going into some very interesting commentary on what is Layton and who is he and how has he played into the story, like overall, and his kind of views. Because like I said, ever since he left Asha when they were in the reactor, he's just been having all these types of visions. So it's very much a supernatural element that I don't really know if should have ever been in the series, but they have to kind of they kind of have to like reconfigure everything to make it different and fresh, and try and give some new storylines to move through this series while keeping it the same series. But yeah, that's where the episode ends. It ends with Layton falling down unconscious, which I'm sure is going to play out pretty quickly in the next episode. But even though I really wasn't on board with what they did with Pike and everything that kind of settled that, and I still don't like the fact that his demise came as it did, the fact that they did it in this route and the way the story played out, this is an absolutely fantastic episode in my honest opinion. Is it perfect? No, there's some stuff that I just, could have not been in there, like the Audrey and Wilford stuff. But I understand why it's in there. It makes sense. They have to have some progression with Wilford in some form or fashion. But I think it's an episode that really hits hard especially if you're a fan of the series. I think the fact that Stephen Ogg is kind of no longer in the series anymore is going to be it's going to be hard to watch, because you grow to love these characters, you grow to hate these characters, but you just grow to have fun with them and enjoy their arcs. And this is a very dark and disturbing but very kind of interesting show to watch. And I was really just kind of taken aback and really emotional watching this episode. I really love this series. I know it gets a lot of hate for the fact it's based off the Bong Joon-ho movie, and it's has problematic material sometimes, but when they do hit it properly, they actually become one of the great shows that I just truly love. And Leslie Hope has become one of those directors of this series, at least, that has really just kind of elevated herself as one of the best directors for the series, because she always gets the episodes that are really impactful. And there are other directors in the series, but I always find her episodes actually pretty good. So, but with that said, that's gonna be like my official stance on this episode. I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10. Like I said, the stuff with Pike takes it down a little bit, because I feel like they just kind of shoehorned in his demise. But maybe Stephen Ogg has something else he's working on, like a TV series or something. But either way, I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10. It's a great episode, and I really think it really helps this season in the midpoint to eventual next 4 episodes really gather its strength as being a really truly a fantastic season for Snowpiercer. So overall, 9.5 out of 10, and that's where I'll stand on Snowpiercer season 3 episode 6, which is of course Born to Bleed. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Comments below, let me know what you think of the episodes, what do you think of the overall story arcs, and demise of course Pike. What was your overall take on this episode? So anyways, thank you so much. If you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome, hit that like button, and as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.